Well, first, a big aloha and mahalo, my brother. Welcome back, and thank you for doing this.
Pleasure. Thank you so much.
And we're doing a series off the road that you're part of, and just a few questions to kind of set the stage, which we ask everybody before we get into their projects and stuff. First, where are you now, and is this where you've been since the start of the pandemic?
I'm right in front of my piano at home. We live in Malibu and been here for many, many a moon.
Right.
I like being near the ocean. That's why I love Hawaii so much. You know, we have a place right on the ocean there, and miss it.
You do have a great place here, and we've been privileged to actually record a nice interview there. So it's and I know about your love of the ocean, and so I had thought I read that you had been doing. Were you out on tour when the thing first hit, or kind of take us back to first becoming aware of the pandemic? In any ways, it's touched you both professionally and also personally, Herb.
Well, it touched us professionally because Lonnie and I do about 50 concerts a year. And we were scheduled to play throughout Canada, the eastern part of the United States, and then we were going to play. And I was looking forward to it. This very famous jazz club in London, and we had to postpone everything. We postponed the entire tour, and I'm a little reluctant to whether we're going to be able to do anything in this year, 2021. I think it's all going to happen in 22. So. Yeah, we're disappointed about that, but my goodness, we've been through a lot, the whole bunch of us in the world. I mean, it's kind of a tragic moment in our history.
There's no question on so many different levels. And just riffing on what you said, was that Ronnie Scott's? Was that the famous jazz club in London you were going to be at?
Yeah, you got it. Ronnie Scott's been thinking about playing there for years, and finally, we decided to do it. And it was a little disappointing because we signed contract to do it. 3 days later, they were totally sold out. We were going to play there for a week, and I couldn't believe that there were that many people that wanted to see us and hear us in London.
Well, it's something we can hope for to reconnect, like you said, hopefully next year when if everything settles down by 2022. And as you were talking about how what we've all been through, I think like you're a cat who not only with your musical career, but then of course because of your relationship with the label with A&M, there's so many connections you've got to in so many different threads to different musical folks. And when I think of Manu Dibango, Ellis Marsalis, father of Wynton, Branford, and Delphio Marsalis, John Prine, Adam Schlesinger of Fountains of Wayne, Toots Hibbert from Toots and the Maytals. Those are some of the big musical cats we lost to COVID. And with your ties, any of those in your personal sphere in any way?
No, not really, but I feel for all of them. It's something that took us all. We were off guard, and I think we were not as coordinated as we needed to be with this thing looming around us.
Are you keeping yourself kind of removed from contact with folks, or how do you have you altered your pattern of behavior to make sure you're safe?
Oh, are you kidding? My wife Lonnie has me tethered to our property here. She won't let me out. She's afraid. Yeah, we've been very cautious, especially at my age. All the terrible things you hear. If you happen to get the virus and you get COVID, you might as well check in at a cemetery. So she's very afraid that something might happen, but we've been fine so far. We're very cautious and lucky.
Yeah, well,
Grateful too.
that's what I'm sure everybody who's listening wants you to stay safe and healthy. And during this time, though, on the flip side, as it has been for so many artists that we've been talking to who find themselves sequestered at home and digging into their art and trying to express themselves, also helping folks out along the way, you've been busy, I understand, making your art. And I don't just mean music, but your physical art, the paintings, the sculpture, also composing, recording new music during this downtime. Share what you've been up to in these areas with us, Herb.
Well, you hit it. I mean, I've been recording. I have about 20 new tracks that I've been recording with. It's amazing, Dave, with the zeros and ones. I call musicians that are friends of mine and ask them to, like I've been doing some things with Jeff Lorber, who's a dear friend of mine. And we just share music. He'll write or record a track, send the track to me. I'll put a trumpet on it. And then I can send just the trumpet part back to him because it's all time coded. So he can just set that into his rig, and I add to it or subtract to it, and he can add to it and send it back to me. It's an amazing feature that, obviously we couldn't do in the 60s. There's a lot of good things that happen because of it, and there's a lot of negative things that happen because of it, because you kind of miss that feeling of being in the studio with a bunch of musicians and bouncing off of everyone's energy and ideas. So we can't do that. But as an explanation of this whole thing, I did an album called Re-Whipped. It was one of the A&R producers had this idea. He says, why don't you take the Whipped Cream album and get a bunch of young, talented mixers and have them whip it up in a different way. So we decided to do that. They got these mixers from around the country, and they would individually send me what they were working on and ask me to put a trumpet over here and maybe another trumpet over there, another thing. And so I would do that, send the trumpet back to them, because like I say, it's all time coded, just the trumpet. I didn't have to send anything else. And we did this album called Re-Whipped. But my point is, these guys could have been in Afghanistan. I never met them. Right. I never met them in person. Right. I don't even know what they look like, but we did this album together, and the album is pretty darn good. But it's, like I say, it's not like the things we used to do when we had the advantage of having a bunch of musicians in the studio and bouncing off of everyone's ideas and energy. I miss that.
Well, you put that's interesting, and that's certainly what you're referring to, and I don't think anyone really has mentioned this so far, is there is a certain kind of creative spark that is different about being in the same place with someone versus just moving the tracks around digitally, is what you're pointing out. And sometimes without having that, there is a gap.
Yeah, and not only that, the way it is now with the zeros and ones, people can record in their iPhone or their iPad and have umpteen million tracks to deal with. And sometimes that can get a little confusing. Right. You have so many possibilities.
Good point. Too many possibilities, and it just gets kind of like overwhelming.
Well, it does. Even like I remember in the 70s, there was this rock and roll band that was recording at our studios in A&M. It was a custom studio, so that we would rent the studios to various artists. And this rock and roll group, 4 pieces, drums, guitar, keyboards, and bass. And I remember walking in there one day in the hallway, and I ran into the leader of the band, and he said, I'm all excited because I get to mix. Now they mix it down to stereo. I said, wow, that should be a lot of fun. He said, well, not really. I said, what's the problem? He says, I have the drums on 34 tracks. Well, lots of luck.
That's good stuff. And you're going to keep the band anonymous? Not going to tell us who that was?
Yeah. I don't think it was a known band, but it was just the idea. And it's probably is kind of typical of what some of the guys have been, musicians have been doing, because you have so many options when you're dealing with zeros and ones that it becomes overwhelming, and it becomes a little too clean, in my opinion. Part of the records that we really loved, those records in the 60s, Marvin Gaye and Aretha and all, there's a bit of sweat on those records that you kind of feel. It's not perfect, but it's something that just grabs you.
Totally. No, that grit and the little bit of noise is here and there. You can't, once that's gone, it's like the difference between vinyl and digital. I know what you mean. There's
yeah. And also, I think art is not what you hear or see. I think art, period. Painting, sculpting, making music, acting, writing, poetry, whatever it happens to be, it's all about a feel. That's that's what I've broken it down to in my years of experience. But I think that's what it is. I think it's all a feel. I think that's why we like Billie Holiday and why we loved Ray Charles and Aretha and Miles Davis, and it's the feeling that we get, because you can't identify what it is, that you can't pinpoint what that thing is that makes you want it, that seduces you when you hear something or see something.
Right.
It's there's that other dimension.
Right, when it touches you. I totally know what you mean. It's like when you're looking at a puppy and you start to get that feeling in the middle of your chest. You're like, what's going on? Why do I feel this powerful thing? I just want to grab that little dog. I know there's something deeper, and that's what the feel is. Music is the same way. And I wonder if that's how your philanthropic heart kind of moves either, Herb, because I know you offer a lot of support with the Herb Alpert Foundation. I know you supported 98 organizations in 2020. Some were in urgent need of help due to the pandemic, and I know your foundation's given out like $200 million since its founding by you and your lovely wife, Lonnie. Fill us in on who in need, any highlights of who you were helping during the pandemic, or just overall how it touched you.
Yeah, well, Dave, to tell you the truth, I want to try and keep art alive. I think we need the artists. The artists are the second responders. You know, we all want to feel something and feel like we're not alone, and the artist kind of gives us that insight into what's happening in the world and in our lives. So a lot of the major corporations are kind of bailing because of the pandemic and what's happening out of the art world. But I'm doing my best to keep that alive. But in 2010, I saw an article in the New York Times where the Harlem School was going out, and they were closing their doors, lack of funds, et cetera, et cetera. So I jumped in there on a knee-jerk reaction, and we put some new people in place, and all of a sudden the place is thriving, and we just refurbished the entire center, and it's been a great thing. I really believe in the artists, and I'm so enamored with art because, you know, when I was 8 years old, I had this opportunity in my grammar school in Los Angeles, and there was a music class, and they had a table filled with instruments. I happened to pick up the trumpet, couldn't make a sound out of it because I thought you just blow hot air into it. But when I finally made a sound, Dave, I was amazed that it was talking for me. The trumpet was actually saying the things I couldn't get out of my mouth, because I'm an introvert, basically. I'm a card-carrying introvert. And the trumpet was doing all sorts of things and made it a lot easier for me. And through the years, it just has taken me to some very interesting places. And I wanted all kids to have that type of opportunity at an early age. I think it's a very important ingredient to have, to just rub elbows with something creative when you're young, whether it's, you know, playing an instrument or writing poetry or whatever it happens to be. If you want to act or dance, it's not important. Just to get those creative juices flowing, and then if you can feel good about yourself, because you have to put in the time. It's not just a matter of saying I'd like to be. You got to actually do it and work at it. But if you'd work at it enough and you feel good about what you're doing, and you might enjoy yourself because you accomplish something, and feel, you know, good about the results. I hope to think that you might feel good about the other person's accomplishments as well.
I remember you telling me that when we were talking at your house, and I never forgot it. When you're sleeping, the other guy's up early practicing.
Yeah, I do tell musicians especially that while you're sleeping, someone else is practicing because they want the same thing you want. I mean, it's kind of the idea was to jolt somebody into thinking, man, you got to put in the time. That's the story.
Right, and you got to
And it,
work hard, and I wonder if that's also what you were saying. You know, a lot of the time, because of your inspiration at such a young age, that brought you to the horn and brought you the career and all the success and the comfortable lifestyle, and that's why you sort of give back and want to make sure it's in the schools. You also have the Herb Alpert Award in the Arts coming up in May, an increase of 5 to 10 winners total that are going to get like 75 grand apiece. But these are for mid-career artists, huh? Share a little bit about this.
well, I was always enamored with the artists that I was going to school with that were like a little left of center. You know, they weren't trying to attract attention, but they were doing their thing the way they saw it, and that's the road less traveled. And so we honor these mid-career artists who are a little, experimenting and trying to do things that are just coming out of them naturally. They're not thinking about how much money they can make from it, but they're just thinking about the art. And those are people that I've always felt something they needed a little helping hand, and those are the artists that we have been supporting for over 25 years now.
Yep, 27th year, and in May they'll have these awards coming up. And you know what else I was thinking about, Herb, is the way that you have been staying busy during the pandemic and obviously trying to help out folks who are in need during that as well. When I think about this, Herb Alpert it's both a documentary we're going to talk about in a moment, but also the 63-song compilation. On that record, when given a little bit of an overview of this to us, was this release at all delayed or affected by the crisis?
Oh, the documentary was for sure about 6 months to maybe a little bit more than that, a year, and the record as well.
Okay.
Yeah, they were released. It was released simultaneously with the documentary. Yeah, through the timing was thrown off by the events.
And so many tunes. You got this whole, I guess it's sort of like the documentary when you're putting together this legacy that stretches from decade after decade, so many different flavors and styles. And I just finished watching the documentary Herb Alpert over the weekend and got a lot of smiles in that thing. That's a good, almost like you're doing a service for folks during this dark time, Herb, because that thing will put a smile on your face. It'd be hard not to come away from that with a smile.
That's why I was anxious to do it, to tell you the truth. I've been approached many times throughout the years to do a documentary, and I was always reluctant because I never wanted to live my life in reverse and talk about what was, because I'm trying to be in the moment, blah, blah, blah. But I met this director, John Scheinfeld, who was kind of like a jazz musician, because he didn't have a storyboard. He was pitching me on doing a documentary. He didn't have a storyboard. He didn't have an idea. He didn't have anything. He said, I'll get the ideas from you and Lonnie. We'll interview you and get a thread of some thoughts, blah, and kind of weave something together. And I kind of like that approach. And the thing that struck me where I think I could possibly help others, and it wasn't a matter of just me, aren't I wonderful? Look at all the records I've sold. I wanted to show people that, I had the American dream come true. In 1969, I was famous, I was rich, and I wasn't feeling good. I was, bordering on miserable. And I wanted to show that part of it too, that it's not all wonderful. It's I went through a lot to get out the other side and get on the right path again. But just because I was successful and people knew me and loved my music, I love playing my music. But I mean, my point is, I thought I had the thing that everyone wanted, and I had it. And it wasn't happening. It didn't make me feel good. So I had to get to the place where I appreciated, what had happened to me.
And you show that in there, but I guess I mean and there is that serious part that you've just described. But the other side of it is there's a lot of fun in watching the vintage footage. Perhaps is one of the things that really kind of, when you watch it, there are like these promo videos, for example, that you've dug up. There's one that features you and the entire Tijuana brass band, it looks like, in a vintage car cruising around in the 60s, all jammed into this really, really vintage car. Do you remember doing that one in particular?
Oh, not only do I remember it, it was the very first video we did. That was, yeah, sure, I remember it clearly. In fact, it was like yesterday. I can't believe that so much time has passed and it goes so darn. I couldn't wait to be 21, but I can wait now to be a little older. Yeah, no, I remember that. And yeah, there's a lot of great moments there. I even, I can tell you the honest truth that I like my music. I make music that makes me feel good. I never tried to make a hit record. I tried to make really good records. And I felt if it was fun for me to play, it's going to be fun for some other people to listen to, not everyone. But that's the way I approached it. And I remember listening to Whipped Cream and Other Delights after it was finished. I was sitting in the recording studio, just listening as an audience, and I was thinking to myself, man, that's good. I like that. That feels really good. I hope a lot of people get some pleasure out of it. Man, it's the biggest album I recorded. So 14 million copies later, I'm thankful that the music that I choose to make, the music that touches me, has also touched some other people as well.
You have such a great line in the film about how well you take care of yourself. You turn to the camera at one point and you say, "This is why I look like I'm 82 when I'm really 83."
Well, yeah, that's a nice yuck. But I mean, I try to, genetics plays a big part in one's health for sure. But, I try to do whatever I can to stay healthy. I really like what I'm doing. I love painting. I love sculpting. I love making music.
Let's talk about the painting and sculpting for a second. Let's talk about the painting and sculpting. The film features it a bunch, and it's very inspiring. It always makes me feel good when I watch those giant sculptures being made. But dial in on the paintings. When did you discover the interest in painting? When was it that you said, I want to start painting?
Well, I was traveling around the world with the Tijuana Brass, doing concerts, and in spare time, I would go to museums, different parts of the world. And I'd always walk into the, modern art section. I was kind of something about modern art that touches me. And I'd always see a painting in the museum that was like a black painting with a purple dot, one purple dot and a solid black painting. And then at other museums, I'd see a white painting with a green dot. And I was thinking, this is in a museum. Come on, man, I can do that. Come on, I can make a dot in it. Anyways, that was, I don't remember exactly the year, well, I've been painting for over 50 years. So whenever that was.
Wow.
So I grabbed some paints when we got home and started moving paint around, like a monkey. I was just doing, using acrylic paint and just trying to get something on the canvas that made me feel good. And little by little, I started to see things that worked. And so I kept at it, and it kept evolving. And this dealer happened to see my collection. I never thought I was doing it for anybody else. But he saw it and he said, "Why don't we show him your work in his gallery?" So I took him up on it, and it was successful. And I've had a lot of fun doing it. And then about 10 years after that, I started sculpting. And one thing led to another, man. I got sculptures in museums. In the Chicago Field Museum, I got 9 sculptures there in the permanent collection. And then Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and the Wildlife Museum there's 12 huge sculptures there. And I don't know, it's been a lot of fun. I'm a lucky guy. I get to do what I love to do. I try not to judge my work in terms of, is it good or bad, or is my painting as good as Michelangelo or Monet or Van Gogh? Once you start doing that, you're sunk. So I just said, I'm going to get up to my own water level and leave it at that. And that's what I do with the paintings, and that's what I do with the sculptures. I'm not Rodin. I'm not one of those great um, um, sculptors through the ages that have this huge reputation. I just do my thing. In fact, I have this. This is a little side note. I was in Florence, Italy, and I was going through the museum there, and I turned the corner and saw David, that famous sculpture of David. And I remember looking at it and welling up. I was almost in tears, thinking that, man, here I am in Italy, and I'm seeing one of the most famous sculptures ever. And I thought about that a few weeks later, and I was thinking, when I really examined the sculpture as I was looking at it, and I was thinking that if I was alive in that period, and Michelangelo, I was with him, and he said, "Herb, what do you think of this sculpture? I'm almost finished." I would have said, "I think the hands are too big and the feet are too big." Well, yeah, lots of luck.
That is funny. That thing's imposing too. It's gigantic. I've stood there and looked at it myself. It's a very tall.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, my point of saying this is that you got to just do your own thing. Leave it at that. If people like it, great. If they don't, great too. It's not important. You do it for the love of doing it.
That's right.
And I tell musicians all the time, young musicians especially, look at, if you're not passionate about wanting to be a musician, don't even attempt it. There are great musicians all around this world. We have a jazz club here in Los Angeles called Vibrato, and we have when we were able to, we had musicians playing there 6 nights a week. Various musicians that live in the Los Angeles area, some you never heard of, but they were just absolutely fantastic. I mean, just musicians that are, trying to break through, but haven't yet, but they're great. And there's so many wonderful musicians and artists around the world. So if you're going to be a professional, or if you want to be a professional artist, make sure you're doing it for the right reasons, and you're super passionate about wanting to be one.
Great advice. And let's do a music story from the movie, actually. Part of the film covers your association with Sam Cooke. And in your previous times on the show, because we've been blessed to have Herb on 3 or 4 times prior to this, and you've told me the big stories about working with him and getting those songs together. But a story I've never heard you share, and the movie made me think of, do you remember the last time that you interacted with Sam Cooke, and any memories of the last time or times you were together that stick out?
Well, the whole times that I spent with him stick out, because I don't remember the exact last time. I mean, the last time is my memory of him doing a really dumb thing. I mean, because this was a beautiful human being, a great artist. I don't know whether I told the story in the documentary or not, but he used to have a notebook filled with lyrics, songs that he was going to write. And he came up to me and he said, "Herbie, what do you think of this lyric?" And so I was reading this lyric, thinking to myself, man, this is the corniest lyric I have ever seen, and I didn't say that to him. I said, "But Sam, what is it? What's the song like? Is there a melody to this?" So he picked up his guitar and started playing. And all of a sudden, he's transformed this corny lyric into something that was really special. And at that point, it was the aha for me, thinking that, man, it ain't what you do, it's the way how you do it. And he had that magic. There was something about, how he put it all together. And here's a really, really interesting story about Sam. Lou Adler and I were partners, and we wrote Wonderful World with Sam. Mm-hmm. Don't know much about history, don't know much, we wrote that one. And so Sam wasn't sure whether that was a good song or not. So he wanted to make wasn't a cheap demo. He just made a demo of the musicians that were available to him at the time in the studio at Keene Records. He put it together, and he wanted to listen to it to see whether it was worth, putting out as a single. And he decided he just wasn't that interested in it. And so Keen Records put that on the shelf. And then Sam left the record company and started recording for RCA Victor and had a lot of success with RCA Victor. So that was the one thing that they had in the archives, this record of Wonderful World. So Keen Records decided to release it. And here's the point. It's the biggest single record Sam ever had.
Right.
Didn't know if it was a hit or not, and nobody else did. But nobody knows what a hit record sounds like. You got to put it out there, and the people will tell us. The people will tell you. And I don't know. Sam was an amazing teacher. You know, he taught me so many things. He was like a mentor, but he didn't know that. He was just a guy, you know, who was the lead singer of a great gospel group called the Soulsters. And his instincts were fabulous. And then he decided to start his own record label, which he did, called SAR Records. And he was, looking for artists, and he found this one artist that was from the Caribbean, and he was about to interview him, and he wanted me and Lou to be part of the interview. So this guy comes in, and this guy was extremely handsome, and had a little stool to put his leg on while he was playing guitar and singing. And I was looking at him thinking like, wow, man, this guy is good. I'm sure Sam's going to sign him in no time. I was in the control room with Lou, and the artist was in the studio. So Sam walks in and says, what do you think? I said, man, I think the guy's good. He says, well, do me a favor. Turn your back on him and listen to him for a few minutes. So I turned my back on him, and I didn't get it. He didn't resonate the same way he did when I was looking at this extremely handsome guy.
Wow.
And I said, I don't get it the same way. He said, that's right, man. People don't care if you're black or white or what kind of echo chamber you use. They're just listening to a cold piece of wax, brother. And it either makes it or it don't, you know? And at that point, that thought was riveted on my forehead, because whenever I auditioned an artist at A&M, I always did it with my eyes closed, not looking at him. I didn't want to be intimidated by someone who could dance like Michael Jackson or anybody else. I just wanted to hear that artist, and those are the people that I signed, the people that touched me. Then when I heard the Carpenters, it wasn't the music that I normally listen to, but I heard something that they were doing that felt authentic, and I think that's the measure. You got to find someone who is doing it because that's that oozes out of them, and that was oozing out of Richard and oozing out of Karen, and then the bonus of all bonuses was that, you know, Karen had this magical voice, and the rest was history.
And people can see some of that. There's a great scene in the movie, and a lot of explanation for when he's sitting at the piano talking about how the Carpenters song, how they took that one song and he kind of slowed it down and changed it around a little bit, and it became this epic part of their legacy. And it's also that story is a great illustration of what you were talking about, that it's about the feel, and instead of looking at something, just hearing it. I love that explanation. You mentioned Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones factor several times. He's seen on the screen in there. Now, first, when was the last time you saw or interacted with Quincy Jones?
Oh, it's been a while, but you know, Quincy is one of those guys that everyone loves. This guy. He's a special guy. He's so active. He has like 18 balls in the air at the same time, and he's doing wonderful things. He's just a fabulous musician, and very giving, very open, very humble. You know, he's not a big shot about the whole thing, but he's the real goods. You know, I love him, and whenever we talk, it's like old times. It's like you know, you might not see him for a year or two, and you run into him, and it's like nothing ever changed. he's in my top 10 of wonderful people I've known in my life.
What's a favorite moment or story of being with him? Something that gives you a lot of satisfaction or that displays the kind of personal character you're talking about? Maybe just makes you smile or feel good.
Billy and I, Billy, Quincy and I produced a single record by Billy Eckstine. And so Quincy has a really great sense of humor, and Billy Eckstine, old timer, but man, he was, a great singer. He had a great band, and he discovered a lot of wonderful musicians. So we were doing this single with him, and Quincy did the arrangement, and Billy was in the studio, earphones on, ready to sing, and Quincy's arrangement had this long intro, and Billy Eckstein says, "Hey, baby brothers, I can have I could have some sex and do a lot of things before it's time to come in here. Can you make a shorter intro for me?" So I don't know. There's something about that story that touches me in terms of, Quincy knew exactly what he was talking about, and didn't offend him. He just, cut the thing down and off we went.
I love it.
Quincy was We Are the World. He was he was the linchpin for that whole thing. That was done in our A&M studios. And if I forgot the year, I was in Mexico City at the time.
85, late 84 or early 85.
Yeah. So he was the guy that, said, leave your ego at the door and let's get this done for people who need help. And he did that, and all the musicians there and artists, they all respected Q because he is special.
What a great memory. That was done at your studios. You were out of the country. Is that what you said when you were?
Yeah, my wife was performing in Mexico City with Jose at the famous patio. So that's where we were at the time.
But still, doing happening there at the A&M studios. And you have a great little moment in there where you, in the movie, you walk us through the old A&M studios. This is where some classic Charlie Chaplin films have been done, and now it's the Henson Studios. Do you still own that property, or did you just arrange to get access to go and film there now?
No, they bought the property, and they did a splendid job of refurbishing the studio. Actually, the studio looks better now than it did when we had it. They made some changes that were just very nice. Run smoothly. It runs like like a studio should. And every time I record there, and it hasn't been too often, but they said, "Man, we can't charge you, man. You started this whole place, and we feel badly to send you a bill." I said, "Man, please, I feel embarrassed unless you invoice me, please, or else I'm not gonna work there anymore." But yeah, it's been fabulous, and they've done a great job of not only keeping the studio intact but improving on it.
Whole place has a nice feel when you're walking around there. You see it enough to where we're talking about Herb Alpert is his documentary, and he walks you through a lot of different famous places and shows a lot of vintage promo reels. But walking around those studios and just the yard there, the outdoor part and the greenery and stuff, you just get a nice nostalgic kind of feel, and it's very comforting. One of the cats who also connects to that empire that is featured throughout the documentary several different times actually is Sting. Frontman for the Police, enormous solo artist. What's a personal moment together with Sting that kind of like the thing with Quincy, it just makes you smile when you reflect on what you and him, you guys did a lot of stuff together.
Yeah, Sting is a wonderful guy. He's, he was a teacher. He used to teach English, and I don't know what grade level, but he's was a jazz musician at one time. He's a bass player, stand-up bass player. He could play stand-up bass. And the first time I met him, the Police, they were playing at the Whiskey A Go-Go. I was there with my partner, and they were performing, and it was like, wow, these three guys, they were making noise like there was like at least 7, 8 people on the stage, and Sting was bouncing around the stage like he was on a pogo stick singing. But he could write a wonderful song. He's very musical, and of all the artists that I've met through the years, especially at A&M, Sting is a standout. He's a wonderful, decent guy who does nice things for others and very humble, and I'm crazy about him.
Does he ever come out to your place there in Santa Monica and hang out? Not like during the pandemic, but before all this?
Well, years ago, he came out to the house, but no, not since then. He's sometimes lives in New York, but sometimes lives in Tuscany. But he sends, he grows grapes, he bottles wine. He sends me 12 bottles of wine every year. And this year he sent a whole bucket of olive oil.
Wow.
That they're doing at his place in Tuscany. But yeah, he's a lovely person. I like him so much.
The thought of that makes me turn back to Lonnie, and what a amazingly talented, lovely wife, your musical partner, of course, Lonnie Hall, and a great co-host that time when we came to your place to record, and I'll never forget getting to spend time with the two of you there. When I was watching her in the film, talking about how your relationship first came together and some of the special times, and then when you were talking about Sting in Tuscany, it just made me think, where did you guys go on your honeymoon, and have there been any special anniversary trips or celebrations of that marriage that come to mind?
Well, first off, I'm married to an angel. Lonnie and I have been married 47 years. We've been married 3 times, one time in Hawaii, on Oahu, and the other 2 times here in Los Angeles. One time we married ourselves, and the second time was with a rabbi. The third time was with a priest. So I'm covering all the bases. Memories. We didn't go anyplace on our honeymoon because we were in the middle of doing some concerts, I believe, and also we had a dog by the name of Harpo, who was my best man. We married ourselves the first time, and Harpo, our dog, was my best man. But at the time, I said, whenever you want to get married, we'll do it, So she wanted to, have a ceremony that we married ourselves. And at the time, I had this little beard growing, mustache and kind of long beard. I said, whenever you want, I'll shave it off and everything will be fine. She was saying, man, if you shave this beard off, you're going to change. It's going to change you into something different. I said, believe me, it's not going to change me at all. And I was in my funky shirt and and bathing suit, whatever. I said, trust me, it's not going to change. So I go upstairs, I shave the beard off and come back down with a tuxedo on. I said, how's this? Anyways, we got married that day, and our dog Harpo was our best man, my best man. And our love for each other has just grown through the years, because I finally realized that women are from Venus and men are from Mars. And I've always tried to look at life from her point of view. If we run into a snag, I'm trying to figure out what she's thinking about and how she's putting it together, because she came from a totally different background, from Chicago, and thinks differently in a lot of areas, but she's brilliant at the same time. So we've had a couple snags along the way, but we've always worked it out. And we are dear friends. She's my best friend by far. And I love her to death. I mean, she's turned into a world-class chef, believe it or not. And why is so unusual, because when I met Lonnie, I signed Brazil 66 to A&M Records. I auditioned them in 1966. Lonnie obviously was the lead singer. And I produced those first few albums, but I took Sergio and the group on the road with us, and they opened the show for the Tijuana Brass for a period of time. And Lonnie and I just became friends. And little by little, sparks started flying. And she invited me over for lunch one afternoon at her apartment. And so she made me like an Uncle Ben's steamed rice with a rotten carrot on top of it. I was thinking to myself, man, that's the best she could do. But since then, she has become like an incredible cook. She kind of likes the process. It's very, when you're cooking and when you're making music and when you're painting a sculpture, you're in the moment of your life. And that's what she's getting out of, working in the kitchen. She's just in the moment of her life, having a great time and making some very creative things. She get these recipes. She follows recipes and then she kind of improvises on top of it all. And it's just been wonderful.
Well, you've set the stage very, very large here on it. You've got to share at least one of the dishes that she's cranking out with this kind of presentation. Come on, give us at least one of the ones that comes to mind that you enjoy that she's been whipping up.
Well, she does a lot with couscous and these. Let's see, what did we have last time? We had turkey meatloaf, which is really good. I don't know what she does. She puts some stuff on top of it that kind of has a little zip to it. But
I love that description. Stuff on top, Herb. That's perfect.
Yeah, I don't know what the stuff is. Her secret weapons. It's really good. She's changed my life by far because, prior to that, meeting Lonnie and getting involved with her, I wasn't in smooth water. I had too much success and maybe too many things that tempted me, and got over that. I had a trouble playing the trumpet for a while. In 1969, when I was going through a divorce for my first wife, and I had to work my way through that. Met a great teacher in New York who was helped me through it. Right. Because I thought maybe I should change my trumpet, change the mouthpiece, change this and that and the other thing, because I couldn't get a good sound out of the trumpet and I was stuttering through the horn. He says, "Look at man, let me tell you something. The trumpet is just a piece of plumbing." Right. Which is quite an image when you look at a trumpet. It's just a bunch of pipes. So he said, "It's a piece of plumbing, man." He says, "You're the trumpet." So that's when I realized, man, the trumpet sound comes through your inside out. So that's what I've always tried to do, be as authentic and honest as I can about playing the instrument and leaving it at that. I got over the feeling of not wanting to play like Miles Davis or Louis Armstrong or Harry James or any of the great musicians that I adored. I got to the place where I decided I'm just going to be myself, make my music, because Miles, as great as he was, he can't do what I do. And I can't do what he does. So let's leave it at that.
It's funny, you've mentioned him now a couple times, so it'd be wrong not to mention, you mentioned that great quote that Miles Davis has about your sound and how identifiable it is and unique, and that comes up in the documentary. Are there any stories of interacting with Miles Davis, one trumpeter to another, that equally are just great parts of your life that perhaps come to mind as I'm thinking about it, like personal one-on-one interactions or times you've spent with Miles?
Well, Miles was a very unusual person. He's been through a heck of a lot in his lifetime. And I had dinner with him one night with Lonnie. And in fact, it was at Burt Bacharach's house. And he was a little out there in terms of his communication. It was a little hard to understand him because the problems he had with his, throat and speaking. But it was hard to really decode what he was saying, because sometimes he would just talk in the abstract. But he was a good guy. He was kind. He was I liked him a heck of a lot, and I think he was the definitive jazz musician of that particular style. He knew, picked on really good songs. He always surrounded himself with wonderful musicians, and he was doing it for the right reasons. He didn't care whether you liked it or not. And that wasn't why he was making music. He wasn't making music for others. He was making music for himself, and I always appreciated that. I think he was the best.
No, he was authentic, and I think a lot of people appreciate what you just said about him. Was that the only time that you've gotten to really spend personal time at that time at Bert's?
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know what I can say without sounding really weird, but yeah, Miles called me. It was in the 60s, and he said, I was at A&M. He called me. I never met him before. He says, "Hey." I said, "This is Miles Davis." I said, "Oh, man, nice to meet you. I really admire what you're doing." And then he said something that just caught me totally off guard. And I'll just say the N-word. He said, "Do you have any N-words on your label?" I said, "Excuse me?" He says, "Do you have any N-words on your label?" I didn't know how to answer him. And anyways, I told him I'd send him some CDs, et cetera, et cetera. But that was my initial meeting with Miles. And my initial meeting with Dizzy Gillespie was similar, but in a much gentler way. I was playing in Canada at the hotel in Toronto. Dizzy calls me. He says, "Herbie, this is Dizzy Gillespie." I said, "Oh, it's so nice to meet you, man. Loved your music through the years." He says, "I'm tired of putting that iron against my chops for the last 50 years, man. I want to earn some bread." That was Dizzy. And Dizzy and I became really good friends. He used to come by A&M all the time. When he was in town, he was a hoot, man. Very, spontaneous. I had this book of solos and people that have, captured his solos on transcribed his solos and put them in print, and I was showing him this one thing that he played, and he looked at it, the thing he played. He says, "Man, that scares the hell out of me. I couldn't play that if I had to." He wasn't, thinking about notes and things. He was just thinking about the feel and getting the music out. If he had to read something that he had played, he probably couldn't do that.
What great memories, man. This has been, you shared quite a few real stories that after several times of talking with you, we got several today that I have not heard, and more of an explanation on a few that we have. And when you talk about these guys known for their playing, and you reinforce this thing about feel being so important, and it makes me think of your own playing. And throughout our we've been doing this series, we call it Off the Road, Herb, appropriately, as you can imagine, because everybody we're talking to is off the road. And so
at least it's not hit the road, Jack.
No, it's definitely not. But we've been blessed because a lot of folks like you are at their houses, and we had Randy Brecker, famous, you know who Randy is, of course, and Randy.
I know Randy. He's a wonderful musician.
And he played a little for us. We had, remember 10,000 Maniacs? You probably remember them.
Yeah.
We had their singer did this wonderful solo version of Over the Rainbow on viola for us, which was kind of moving, especially because of that cover from Brother Is here in Hawaii, which brings that song a lot of relevance. We had Al Di Meola. He played Strawberry Fields Forever, just solo, him on a guitar. Herb, it was kind of for somebody who's grown up loving his playing, I still can't believe that it happened. It's kind of hard to believe I'm even telling you, but it happened. And we have all these different, anybody. We had Foreigner do Feels Like the First Time. A lot of different groups have done something, and I'm hoping that because you have an arsenal of instruments there, and of course known for your amazing trumpet playing, is there something you could play for the folks, just a little taste of your skill? Because I tell you one thing for sure, Herb, one thing for sure, sure. People really need some inspiration these days. So much has been going on that hasn't been as fun or positive, and you just are the opposite. You're just oozing good, wholesome, positive energy. And so I open up the floor to you, my friend.
Thanks, Dave. I was thinking about when I played with the Tijuana Brass in at the HIC. I don't remember what year that was, but after the show, I went to see Don Ho, who was at the International Market at the time. I forgot the name of the place, but I guess was it? Well, I don't remember.
The International Marketplace, that's the
Yeah,
general site in Waikiki.
yeah, that's where Don Ho was playing at the time with the Elihis. And I had a couple scorpions and blah blah blah. I had my trumpet with me, and I got up on the stage with Don, and I played. I remember you, a tune that was written by Kui Lee.
Wow.
And that was a great memory for me. At any rate, here's my trumpet. I get it. Started the wrong key. Okay. I don't know why I started in the wrong key on the first go. You can cut that part out.
Thank you.
Did that work?
No, it sounds nice. That sounds nice. It's great. We're so grateful. And anything you want to play for us, we're super grateful for, because it goes a long way on the radio. And that's one of the few instruments, the horns, transfer so well via the Zoom. It's incredible.
Yeah, well, I have a little bit. I have a mute on the front of the horn at the moment because it can be a little too abrasive with the horn full blast.
You can try blasting us. Try blasting us. Go for it.
It's an oldie but goodie there.
Nice.
I'm trying to think of how does Rise go?
So nice. So nice, Herb.
Yeah. Thank you.
Giving you high fives on that, my brother. Big high five. Socially distanced, of course.
Okay.
Seriously, we really, really appreciate it. It makes it a nice personal thing when somebody like yourself, the great Herb Alpert, and he's got a fantastic documentary where just some great scenes in this thing. There's one great live shot. You're filming Taste of Honey by the ocean. You've got this whole orchestra lined up there by the ocean, including the timpani guys. They're on these rocks. Looks like one false move and they'd fall right in the ocean. There's just so many funny stories that you kind of just illustrate throughout this documentary. And I really think it's a great thing, and I appreciate getting the chance to talk about it with you.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think it came out rather well. I'm proud of it, and I hope people get a feeling of something. I don't know. I find it hard to promote stuff like that, but I think it's good. I think people will enjoy it.
You remember that time by the ocean with the orchestra, or you've just done too many of those?
No, I remember it distinctly because Shorty Rogers, a famous jazz musician, did the charts. He did that arrangement with the strings. And yeah, it was kind of a blustery day. It was windy, and it looked like it was a lot of fun, but it was a little cold out there.
That's funny. And the other time you're going through the town, like you guys are all dressed. You're walking through the street of some village, and everyone's dressed as a mariachi band, and you're just cruising through. I mean, there's so many. You playing Mexican Shuffle in this packed bull ring. I mean, some of the vintage footage.
Yeah, I think we played walking through the thing. We played that song. That was fun. Yeah, I do have great memories of the past and what happened, and I feel very grateful that I've had this career. You know, to tell you the complete, honest truth about it all, I think it's all timing. I was at the right place at the right time. I'm not trying to be Mr. Humble about this, but you know, if we tried to start A&M Records in today's environment, wouldn't have a chance. If I did The Lonely Bull, which was, you know, the record that started A&M in 1952. That was the first record we had. But The Lonely Bull was the record that kicked the whole thing off. If we put that out in today's world, like it never happened before, I don't even know if it would get airplay because, you know, they're not playing instrumentals like they used to be in years ago. So, timing plays a big part in it, I think. And I got lucky with the timing. I was ready for it. I was prepared, but timing was on my side.
Well, it's a beautiful thing, and it certainly was. You've had a great life, and you sound very humble and appreciative, and just a pleasure to have you on our Off the Road series. And after all these times, great to have you back on the show again, my friend. I hope that you had fun going through some of these memories and sharing some of your current experiences with us.
Oh, it was a ball. It was a lot of fun. Good questions, Dave, and as usual. And it was nice to be able to do something. And now now I'll put my clothes on. I had no clothes on. I'm doing this Just a joke. Yeah. Aloha, my friends. This is Herb Alpert. I'm back with you. I'm returning for another HPR fundraising drive. What a blast I had with my buddy, Dave Lawrence. It was really great to be part of Dave's Off the Road series. Folks, it's only possible because of our members. If you're listening, please be a member. And here's how, and a big mahalo, a hui ho, and thank you so much.
You're an animal. I'm giving you extra hugs and high fives, and please give my best to Lonnie as well. And I'm glad she's feeding you with all that fine food rather than the Uncle Ben's and the rotten carrot.
You got a good memory. That's good for you.
Seriously, brother, stay safe, and I'm glad you had fun. I did too, and it's always great reconnecting. And I'm wishing you nothing but good health and positivity. And I'm looking forward to the day, fingers crossed, when we get to hang in person again, and everything is safe and this thing is over. Let's hope.
Yeah, yeah, man. I'll give an amen to that. Thank you.
All right, and do pass along to your lovely wife our regards, and we'll see you soon. God bless you, man. Stay safe, Herb.
You too, Dave. You too. Be safe. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.